Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Intuitive Hour. Awaken your inner voice. Today, we're talking about distance sensing, also called controlled remote viewing or CRV. This is an advanced psychic skill enabling a practitioner to mentally see objects hundreds or even thousands of miles away. It's an activity whereby a psychic practitioner tunes into an object, location, or event inaccessible by normal means, regardless of time, distance, or location. So, distance sensing is actually implemented when an individual requests a psychic practitioner, also known as the distance sensor, to look into a past event or request a visit to a location as it existed in the past. It's also used when someone wants to view or peek at something locked or hidden away. Once the distance sensor locates the object or the event and views it, the distance sensor will repeat the revealed information to the individual. The distance sensor does this by using a structured process, incorporating written information, verbal statements, or even illustrated sketches. Distance sensors are often asked to see places or objects situated in unreachable locations, which may be on the other side of the globe. They are also asked to describe events in the past, such as the outcome of Amelia Earhart's last flight or a look inside a sealed container or locked room. The goal of distance sensing efforts is to receive signals and messages from the subconscious mind with the help of our senses, and then interpret and decode that data to the sensor's conscious mind. The signals are said to travel through the sensor's subconscious mind and then into the sensor's consciousness, where it is deciphered into a form verbally or materially that can be reported clearly to others. Psychics with this ability are expected to actually view or see things without previous information or assistance. This is commonly referred to as being blind to the target. The success of any sensibility depends strongly on being used in tandem with other sensibilities. It depends on the collective powers of other sensibilities to obtain a complete mental impression. In short, the distance sensor relies on hearing the sounds surrounding the target and experiencing the tastes, smells, and textures vital to completely seeing the location, item, or event. Distance sensing also relies on the sensor's interpretive skills for effective analysis and a comprehensive reporting of what he or she has seen. Once the distance sensor mentally interprets what he or she witnesses, he or she must convey that information to the client. It's not unusual for a distance sensor to be meticulously trained and to have a customized approach only he or she uses to conduct a complete distance sensing transcript. In her book, Harper's Encyclopedia of Mystical Paranormal Experience, Rosemary Ellen Gilley, an American researcher and writer on topics related to spirituality and the paranormal, described distance sensing as seeing remote or hidden objects clairvoyantly with the inner eye or through out-of-body travel. However, one does not need to travel out of body to learn this sensibility. Anyone can learn this skill, and simply adhering to the structured process typically leads to successful identifying of the target location. Distance sensing is the most intriguing of sensibilities, not only because it requires a more intense and controlled use of one's psychic abilities, but because It's the only sensibility that has been the subject of scientific study by individuals, institutions, and the military. Studies involving psychic occurrences started in the mid-19th century and predominantly centered on testing individuals thought to have psychic abilities. The scientific community viewed those studies with extreme skepticism and eventually deemed the research methodology unscientific. However, in the 1930s, the research was reorganized and it expanded to include large general populations and the use of standard scientific protocols. In spite of these improvements, paranormal research failed to produce repeatable results or positive peer reviews. Things of the spirit are difficult to prove scientifically, but distant sensing remains a valid practice by those who have witnessed its results. Ingo Swann, an extraordinary psychic, artist, and author, has been credited as the creator of the process of CRV, or distant sensing. He is widely known for his work in paranormal research for the military venture known as the Stargate Project. Swann refers to himself as a consciousness researcher who experiences altered states of consciousness. Swann developed CRV while working at the Stanford Research Institute in the early 1970s, working in tandem with American physicist Russell Targ and Hal Puthoff. Swann's experiments with distant sensing caught the attention of the CIA. In The Reality of ESP, a physicist's proof of psychic abilities, Targ presents it was Swann who coined the term remote viewing and who also taught the Army how to remote view. On the evening of April 27, 1973, prior to the Voyager launch in 1979, Swann was involved in a blind CRV session, which resulted in his seeing the planet Jupiter and its moons. It took only 3.5 minutes for him to detect and describe its physical features. Swann described its surface, atmosphere, and weather. In his statement, he reported that Jupiter had planetary rings like Saturn, a controversial notion at the time. Later, the Voyager probe confirmed the existence of such rings. Swann's exact statement was, "Very high in the atmosphere there are crystals. They glitter. Maybe the stripes are like bands of crystals, maybe like rings of Saturn, though not far out like that. Very close within the atmosphere. I bet you they reflect radio probes. Is that possible? If you had a cloud of crystals that were assaulted by different radio waves." Swann's Jupiter session was indeed remarkable, and his respected work in CRV certainly paved the way for like-minded researchers. Yet the results all reported that paranormal research gleaned during that time, governmental or otherwise, was deemed by the scientific community as unremarkable and unreliable. It was the inability of those targeted paranormal research projects to scientifically produce reliable results that brought projects to a halt. In recent years, however, with the introduction of credible organizations like the International Remote Viewing Association, we're seeing a major swing in a new direction. The scientific and research community is embracing distant sensing and other sensibilities. There's a new wave of scientific researchers and independent thinkers sweeping the world, determined to prove there is more about our existence than we have yet discovered. The negative pronouncements by the science community failed to dishearten the thousands of individuals and psychic practitioners who say they are witnesses to the remarkable outcomes of distant sensing sessions of their own. For them, there is nothing to prove. Distant sensing is, by far, a more intense sensibility than most of the others. It uses a person's inner receptivity as a vehicle for signals emitted by objects and places. Such receptivity is an indication that an object which cannot be seen directly is always available to one's subconscious mind because of its connection to the universal mind. These vibrations are also an exceptionally sophisticated benefit of ordinary intuitive realizations. Distant sensing, like all sensibilities, requires one to limit any mental noise interfering with the execution of the psychic skill. This requirement is of utmost importance to the distant sensor. It's critical because mind chatter, thoughts regarding worldly concerns that seeps into the sensor's consciousness, will prevent correct and authentic information from being recovered. The process of distant sensing, as taught by psychic practitioners, involves training would-be sensors to deal with and control the pollution and illegitimate imaginations often experienced in any intuitive process. It's one's inability to control mind noise that prevents a clear, undamaged extraction of information. It's important for the psychic instructor to introduce learners to systems and methodologies essential to effective distant sensing, and that those instructors do so through a step-by-step process the learner can easily internalize. The instructor should guide the learner through sessions involving actual targets and progressively introduce more and more complex targets. He or she is expected to introduce methods and ideas to facilitate control of mental noise and outside distractions. Distant sensing is not a sensibility that stands alone, unaided or disconnected from the other sensibilities. It's a skill separate from clairvoyance and telepathy, but needs the help of the other sensibilities to reach its full potential. In spite of the fact that distant sensors are highly trained and intuitive, anyone can learn this skill. And this includes you. All right, I'd like to bring our episode to a close today. Please be sure to tune in next week as we'll continue our discussion on distant sensing. We'll talk about how distant sensing is used and some techniques, tips, and tools that will assist you in your daily life using distant sensing. We'll talk a little bit about upside-down drawing to enhance right brain activity, and also healing the body with remote viewing. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I look forward to seeing you all here next week.